A warm welcome to Disky Talk with Luyolo. If you're tuning in for the very first time, I do ask that you please subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you've been a part of this journey, I hope you thoroughly enjoy this episode. So, on today's episode, I discuss all things CAF Champions League final, post-match analysis as Wydad Casablanca win the final 2-0 against Ahly. So, coming up then into this episode, this is a post-match analysis of that final. The red team will represent Ahly, and then the blue team will represent Wydad Casablanca. So, when you have a look then at the players that started, in goals, they did start with El Shenawy. With Ahly then, they did start with a 4-2-3-1/4-4-2. And then in goals, they started with El Shenawy. At left back, Ali Maloul. As the left-sided centre-back, they started with Ayman Ashraf. And then they started with Yasir as the right-sided centre-back. At right back, they started with Mohamed Heni. And then they did start then with Hamdi Fati and Alou Dieng as a double pivot within the heart of midfield. And then off the left-hand side, Abdelkader. Off the right-hand side, El Shahat. And then you had Percy Tau and you had Mohamed Tahir as well. So when you have a look then at Ahly with regards to how they went about proceedings in possession of the ball and their offensive scheme. So Ahly then did have the lion's share of possession as they did really boss possession and ended up then with a lot of ball possession. However, at the end of the day, they just couldn't penetrate into the final third and get those goals. However, when you have a look at their offensive scheme with regards to how they look to go about things, so they did then have Ali Maloul looking to offer the width, and then you had Mohamed Heni on the right-hand side, and then you did have Percy Tau, you had Mohamed Tahir, you had Abdelkader, a lot of the times then looking to drift into that left-sided half space. El Shahat as well on the right-hand side would always look to drift into the right-sided half space, and then you had the double pivot as they would sit deep within the heart of midfield. And then you had the two centre-backs. So from an offensive scheme perspective, this is how Ahly looked, especially then when they were in possession of the ball and how then they were looking to impose themselves against Wydad in possession and in their half. However, Ahly really struggled then to break down this Wydad Casablanca side, especially considering then when you have a look at Wydad's tactical and defensive discipline, especially then when it comes to how they were able then to institute their low to mid blocks with regards to how they managed the vertical and the lateral spaces in between the lines. So they made it very difficult then for Ahly to actually get into the game. And what was key then from Ahly perspective was being able then to shift that ball quick enough to ensure then that they are able then to shift Wydad out of possession so that they are able then to play that ball into those advanced pockets of space where then they could find Percy Tau, they could find Mohamed Tahir, they could find Abdelkader or El Shahat who would look then to progress the ball. So with Ahly then, when you have a look at them then, their offensive players then really did struggle to impose themselves and create chances and even get shots on goal. You know, it was a very difficult encounter for this Ahly side from that perspective, even though they had ball possession. And when you look at the two then, with regards to Abdelkader and El Shahat, a lot of the times they were looking to come in and look then to offer Ahly that positional superiority with regards to how they look to position themselves to take the ball in between the lines, but they really struggled from that perspective. Coach Peter Musamane did make early changes within the second half, where then he did bring on Sharif and he brought on Afsha as well. But they too just couldn't make an impact. And I just think that Sharif is a player then who could have actually got a goal because he did get a chance, but Tegnauti makes a beautiful save. Overall then, when you do have a look at this Ahly side, they really struggled with regards to creating clear-cut chances, and really then their chances then really did come then from set pieces. That was a key component of Ahly's game within this encounter, and they just couldn't make those set pieces count because whenever then they did have those set pieces, that's when they looked most dangerous. Another key component is looking at the heart of midfield because with Ahly then and Coach Peter Musimane, they did then go with the double pivot within the heart of midfield. So they went with two midfielders. And at times, I think that within the heart of midfield, they lacked that superiority, especially when you consider then that Wydad Casablanca went with the midfield three, whereas Ahly then had Hamdi Fati and Dieng as well. Whereas sometimes he would go with the midfield three that would constitute of Hamdi Fati, El Sulaya and Dieng. So at times then, when you have a look at Wydad, they did have that numerical superiority within the heart of midfield, and Al Ahly would struggle then to advance the ball. And considering then how then they struggled to advance the ball within the first 20 minutes, that is how the first goal, they conceded the first goal. They struggled then to play out from the back, and a lot of their balls were intercepted, and they just couldn't progress that ball. They couldn't have a successful build-up with regards to how then they were looking then to orchestrate play from the back. A lot of the times then, Wydad would set those pressing traps, they would win the ball, and they were able then to look to attack this Al Ahly side. Overall then, it does end in a situation then where Al Ahly then just couldn't really grow into the game and create clear-cut chances. And the chances then that they did have, the better chances with Pesitao and with Sharif, they just couldn't convert those one-on-one chances. And then when you do have a look then at Wydad, let's have a look at Wydad then. So this was actually a chance for Al Ahly to win the CAF Champions League for the third time in a row, and this could have been Pitso Musimane's fourth title. However, moving on then right along and having a look then at Wydad Casablanca. So with Wydad Casablanca then, they did start with a 4-1-4-1 shape, which at times then would go to somewhat of a 4-5-1, whenever then they would sit really, really deep and sit really compact as well. And then when you do have a look at the players that started, they had Tegnauti in goal. And then as the right back, they did start with Amloud. And then as the right-sided centre-back, they started with Dari. And then as the left-sided centre-back, they started with Fahan. And then at left-back, they did then start with Allah. And then moving on then right along within the heart of midfield, they did have their captain, Jabran. And then they started with Dawoodi. They had Hassouni, and then off the right-hand side, they started with Jadi, and then off the left-hand side, they started with Moutaraji, and then up front, they did start with Mbenza. So when you have a look then at this Wydad side, then with regards to how they started the game, I think that was key, because they started the game at a really high intensity, and they really, really then were the team then that had more impetus, more intensity, and they imposed themselves a lot better. So what they were looking to do then is whenever Al Ahly would look to build up from the back, what this Wydad side did very well is how then they looked to set those pressing traps. And when you have a look at how the first goal comes, it comes as a result of that, where then Al Ahly do struggle then to play out from the back. That ball is played into midfield, but Hamdi Fati does lose the ball, and then Moutaraji gets the ball. He cuts in, and beautiful goal, which curls top corner that Al Shanawai can do nothing about. And as the game then started to progress within the first half, we did then see that this Wydad side started dropping a lot deeper with regards to then how they were looking to manage the game from that perspective. So it was very clear then with this Wydad side that whenever Al Ahly were looking to play out from the back within the beginning phases of the game, they were looking to press them right high up and ensure then that they don't have a successful build-up where they're able then to work the ball into consolidation phase. And whenever then the first line of press was bypassed, then you'd see this Wydad side looking to drop very deep and looking to drop very compact, where then they would manage the lateral and vertical spaces in between the lines. And then when you have a look at the second goal, it does come then from an offensive transition, which then ends up becoming a successful counter-attack, which then was instituted from the right-hand side. That ball is played in, and at the back post, I say Mohamed Heni goes to sleep because Moutaraji is able to creep in, takes a shot, El Shanawai saves, and then Moutaraji finishes off the rebound. And as the game then did progress to the latter stages, you did see then Al Ahly throwing the numbers forward, trying to get back in. But at the end of the day, then with Wydad Casablanca, they were defensively and tactically resolute, and they were very, very disciplined. And it just became a very difficult encounter for Al Ahly to get into. And I think what was key then for this Wydad Casablanca side was how they started the game, how they closed down in the midfield and used that numerical superiority. Also then how tactically and defensively sound they were whenever then they sat deep within their defensive block. And then when you do have a look at the players that were impressive on the night from a Wydad Casablanca perspective, you have a look at Tagnauti. Whenever then that defensive block was breached, he came up with very important saves. And then as a right-sided centre-back, Dari, I think he was very solid on the night and had a very, very clinical performance. He was key then to ensuring that Percy Tau was kept quiet, even then when those balls were going behind, and he could then match the speed of Percy Tau, and he also then won a lot of balls within his own box, so he defended his box very well. And then when you do have a look at Moutaraji, who I think is the man of the match, because every time he got onto the ball in that left wide channel, he always looked a menace. Whether he was looking to cut in or looking to take any on the outside, he always looked very dangerous, and he does then score a brace, which then seals the CAF Champions League final for Wydad Casablanca. So, ladies and gentlemen, then it does end 2-0 in favor of Wydad Casablanca. Do let me know at home, what do you make of the CAF Champions League final then, where Wydad Casablanca were able then to overcome Ahly 2-0. Ladies and gentlemen, do tell me who was your standout player in this fixture, and also then let me know, what do you make of the CAF Champions League this season overall? The winners then are Wydad Casablanca. Thank you very much for tuning in to yet another special episode of Disky Talk with Liolo. Signing out.